want to talk today about some of the tools they have at Harbor Freight. They have a lot of crap, but they also have a few good tools that if you're not using them on a daily or weekly basis, and especially aren't using them for something super accurate, they can work out really well. I've gotten some things there for pretty cheap that would cost me 5-10 times as much if I'm buying some name brand item that I've only had used a few times. But when I've needed to use that item, that's the exact type of tool I've needed. Let me show you some of the things I've gotten there. So I got this angle grinder at Harbor Freight. It was about $10 or $15, and I've used it only a handful of times in the past 5 or 6 years. But when it was something I needed to use, it was the thing I needed to use. Anything else really wouldn't have worked. I would have been there sitting there with a hacksaw forever. So for $10 or $15 versus the 100 or so it would cost for a name brand angle grinder, this has worked out really well. Something else I got from Harbor Freight at the same time I got the angle grinder was this face mask. Again, I don't use this a ton. It's not something I need that often, but when I do, I don't want bits of metal flying at my face. A couple of dollars was well worth it. If I had to wear a face mask every day for my job or something I'm working on in the shop, I would probably buy a better one, but this works out just well enough. Of course, something else they have at Harbor Freight that I've already mentioned before are these clamps, the Pittsburgh clamps. They work out really well. They're strong and sturdy. The only problem I've had with these, if you're tightening them too much, is the glue, the epoxy in here. It comes off of this this bolt, and then it's useless, and you have to repair it. But at the same time, if you're just going to spend $5 on a new one, that's an easy fix. Another thing I've gotten from Harbor Freight that was actually gifted to me was a Sawzall. And even when I got it, I was thinking, when am I going to use a Sawzall? But when you're a homeowner and you're doing some construction stuff on the house, this really does come in handy. Yeah, it's worked out really well for me when I've needed it. When I've needed it, it's been the thing that's been like the lifesaver of that job. It's like, oh wow, I'm so glad I had this tool. There's obviously better Sawzalls out there, just like there's better angle grinders and better clamps. But if it's not something you're using every day or every week, it works out well, some of these simple tools they have at Harbor Freight. So when I first started getting into woodworking, after I bought my table saw, I bought this drill press not long after. And the same thing, even at the time I was thinking, when am I going to use this? And I got it, and I used it a ton, and then I realized how essential it is to have a drill press in the shop. At the same time, a drill press is a pretty simple machine, and one that is cheap is better than not having any at all. It's worth it to just get a simple one to get going, to get started with woodworking. Another thing they have at Harbor Freight that works really well is some ear protection. And you're going to want that if you have power machines in your shop. It's really helpful. You don't want to go deaf just because you're woodworking all day and having a blast, right? And they work really well because when you put them on, Something else you can buy for cheap at Harbor Freight are these floor mats. You put them in high-use areas or your workbench, behind your table saw, that kind of thing. If you're going to be in the shop for days on end making that beautiful thing, when you're done, you're really going to feel it in your feet and your knees and your back, especially if you have concrete floors. So they're really helpful when you first get them. They smell really bad, like they need to off gas, so you open up the package and let it air out outside, that kind of thing. Why am I being so quiet? Because they're also great to take a nap on after you've done some work. Bye.